Set 9 is out and the first meta has slowly begun to surface. A few comps stand out from the rest, and there are a few distinct playstyles that have dominated so far. In this video, I'm going to show you my tier list for the current meta, and then explain my strategy for climbing on this patch, and then take a closer look at how to play each of the comps mentioned in the tier list. Looking at the tier list, Gunner Zeri is the strongest and most forcible 4-cost carry comp in the game. The comp stabilizes incredibly hard with Zeri 1 and can use just about any frontline units, and if you high roll or early Piltover, this comp becomes even stronger. Tristana Reroll is the best low-cost reroll comp so far in the current meta. If you manage to hit on tempo and reach level up for 4 gunners, you're almost guaranteed a top 4, and if you hit Senna and Heimerdinger, you're likely headed for a top 2. Freljord Aphelios is the 3rd best comp in the meta and lands at the top of A tier. The comp is one of the best options to play for consistent top 4s, but the board is more reliant on hitting their 2-star forecasts than Gunners are, so it's a bit less consistent. Ionia Yasuo is a great comp that benefits from a really strong early game that allows for an easy pivot on your level 7 rolldown. This is a good comp for farming top 4s, but it becomes especially strong with an Ionia spot on Kaisa and caps out really high if you hit RE 2-star. 8 Void Kaisa is an incredibly powerful comp if you're able to hit Bel'Veth and reach Baron. Void is one of the strongest early game options, and 6 Void on stage 3 can often carry you to level 8, where you are able to hit Bel'Veth. However, this comp is only really playable late game with +1 Void or stable evolution, or else you will have to pivot off into a different comp. Juggernaut Garen is the best 3-cost reroll comp in the game, as it often just wins out if you manage to hit Garen 3-star with enough Zeeks. This comp is a matchup check, as it mows through mediocre to weak boards in the mid game that don't have enough single target and scaling to take down the Garen. However, if you are ever behind, you often just lose out and go 8th. Sorcerer Lux is a good comp to play from early AP openers with little direction, but it really struggles into some of the stronger comps in the meta. The board is generally flexible and really benefits from +1 Sorcerer, but it's imperative that you hit on your 4-1 rolldown. Bruiser Reksai Reroll is an incredibly powerful comp with a high cap, but it really depends on proper augments and items to perform well. This comp, like Garen, has a really good matchup spread against the current meta, but is not as forcible, and it really depends on hitting Reksai 3-star. Shurima Azir is a comp that has fallen off since PvE after a big nerf. It's still playable from high roll spots, but you avoid it for the most part as it just gets outcapped by Aphelios and Zeri boards, unless you hit multiple 2-star legendaries. Invoker Karma, just like Reksai, is a very strong comp if played from the right spot, but it doesn't have as many high roll outs, or as strong of a potential to win out if you hit everything as the other reroll comps. Finally, Noxus, Katarina, and Darius is a good reroll option that plays really well off a strong early game that allows you to stack Noxus to have enough tempo to reach Katarina 3 and Darius 3. However, this comp really relies on hitting good combat augments and getting 3 good items on each carry, or else you won't be able to break through the late game frontlines quick enough. Now let's get into my strategy for climbing on this patch. There are a few distinct playstyles that you can choose from on this patch. The first and most straightforward one is to take Twisted Fate as your legend and default into taking Pandora's as your first augment. If you take TF, you should default to Gunner Zeri in most games and look to force these specific items, Zeeks and Rageblade, followed by Protector's Vow, Warmogs, and 2 more Zeri items. Eventually, you want to make other items, which will be specified later in the comp's overview section. If your spot isn't ideal for Zeri, you should look towards playing Aphelios or Ionia instead, but this should not be your main game plan. You should also be on the lookout for good opportunities to play Garen, as that comp needs the exact same items late game, which we will also get into later. The second playstyle is to choose Lee Sin as your legend and hope for silver augments on 2-1, so that you can take on a roll. If your augment is gold or prismatic, just play flexible with comps you're comfortable with, depending on your items and opener. If you do hit a silver, take on a roll and force Tristana Reroll, which is the best comp in the game on this patch. With Honor Roll, you are guaranteed to hit everything 3-star early and can push levels aggressively. Do not take any of Lee Sin's other augments though, since they are not good at all. You're only choosing Lee Sin as your legend to have easy access to the Honor Roll augment. The third playstyle is to take Poro, Ornn, or Vladimir and play flexibly between all of these comps. When doing this, you should be prioritizing slamming items early that allows you to play around what units you hit during stage 2 and 3. The best early game slams are Rageblade, Protector's Vow, Warmogs, Sunfire, Static Shiv, and Titans, but you can slam many other items if you have directions towards comps that need them. If you do this, you should default towards playing Aphelios and Zeri when you have no direction, and depending on your mid game, level 7 rolldown, and items, you should choose between the two. In the early game, you should prioritize the Ionia and Void openers if possible to make transitions into the Yasuo, Kaisa, Sorcerers, and Reksai easier. Here are the most common openers for these boards. The final thing to be aware of is that certain augments are very overpowered in the current meta, and you should always consider taking them when they are offered. The best way to find out which augments are broken is to look through the augments page on Meta TFT, which sorts through everything by win rate, average placement, stage taken, and comps that they are strong in. Here are 10 of the best general augments, and here are their average placements listed. Built Different 2 and 3, Mana Burn, Long Distance Pals, Gifts from the Fallen, Unified Resistance 1 and 2, Tons of Stats, Martyr, Idealism, Red Buff, and Know Your Enemy. Now let's take a deeper look into the S and A tier comps of the current meta. All of these comps will be linked in an Imgur album that is available for patrons and YouTube members, and the links to join that is down in the description. First, we have Gunner Zeri. This comp plays differently whether you have Piltover or not. If you do, try to Lost Streak until 3-5 or 4-1. The standard is 3-5, where you want to roll down for a strong board to cash out your T-Hex. Usually, you want to end up with this board, though on level 7, just drop Senna and Jinx for a frontline unit like Jarvan or Lissandra. In general, you don't want to sell T-Hex unless he's below 40, or unless it is the late game and your only way to win fights is to sell him off. If you don't have Piltover, you usually want to roll down on 4-1 for a similar board. Just drop 2 Gunners until you hit Senna, and drop Vi and Echo for better units like Lissandra, Jarvan, Shen, and Sion. This comp's best legend is Twisted Fate, as the comp really benefits from having perfect items, especially Zeke's. When you take Pandora's to play this comp, prioritize Rageblade, 1 Zeke's, and then start making items like WoW and Warmogs for your Sejuani, and extra damage items on Zeri. The reason why you don't make more than 1 Zeke's is because you are guaranteed to get more from teaming up on stage 4-2, whose prismatic version gives you 2 Zeke's Heralds. Zeri's best item after Rageblade is Quicksilver, as it allows you to clump her for Zeke's without getting CC'd by Jarvan and Sion. The stats back this up, as it has a 3.6 average placement on Zeri. Her third item always wants to be a healing item, like Hodge or Gunblade, or a damage item like Last Whisper, Runance, Giant Slayer, or Guardbreaker. The next comp is Tristana Reroll. This is a 1-cost reroll comp, so you should never level on stage 2 and hoard as much gold as possible until stage 3-1, where you should roll down to about 30 gold to hit as many 1-cost units as possible, then slow roll on level 5 until 4-1, where you roll the rest of your gold to hit if you haven't already. If your legend is Lee Sin and you take on a roll though, you play much differently. Instead of hoarding your gold, you hold all 1-cost pairs on your bench at the cost of gold, selling any extra units you 2-star, and try to get as many shop refreshes as possible until you hit your 3-stars. Once you hit level to 6 for Yordles, and try to go 8 for 4 Gunners and Heimerdinger. The third Yordle can be either Kled or Teemo, it doesn't really matter. Itemize Maokai with your tank items instead of Poppy, since she's a really bad unit and you want to 4-star your Tristana. There are 2 core items on Tristana, Last Whisper and Gunblade, though Hodge is a suitable replacement. The third item can be anything, but the best is Giant Slayer followed by Runance and Guardbreaker. Any extra frontline items should go on Viego, and any extra carry items should go on Jinx if you 3-star her, Zeri, or Viego. Next is Freljord Aphelios. This is a 4-cost carry comp, meaning you want to usually roll down on 4-1 at level 7 for some variation of this board. Usually you drop Shen until level 8, or you can drop Ashe or Akshan for units like Jarvan, Sion, and Cassante. You can also drop Lissandra for Ryze. The best legends for this comp are Ornn and Poro, as the comp greatly benefits from high-rolling Sniper's Focus or Eternal Winter from Ornn. Otherwise, general combat augments are great. Aphelios' best item is Ginsu's Rageblade. He is not a good carry without it, so you should always make sure to have one bow for it. His next best item is Deathblade, as it gives him the most raw damage. The last item can be anything, but the stats say that Giant Slayer and Guardbreaker are the best ones. Last Whisper usually isn't that good when you're playing Freljord, as you already get Armor Shred through that trait. Once you itemize Aphelios, itemize Sejuani as your main tank with items like Warmogs, WoW, Sunfire, and Gargoyle Stoneplate, and itemize Urgot as a secondary carry. His best items are Titans, as he really benefits from both the AP, AD, and resistances. If possible, try to get a Bloodthirster or a Hodge on him as well for healing, i.e. Giant Slayer, Edge of Night, and Guardbreaker are also decent options as the third one. Next up is Ionia Yasuo. This is another 4-cost carry comp that really wants to reroll at level 7 to hit your 4-costs, as hitting Shen, Yasuo, and Kaisa 2 means everything for your board. Without Yasuo and Shen 2, your frontline will often just collapse before you can do any damage. If you are rolling at level 7 and don't have +1 Ionia, Then just drop Warwick and play 3 challengers and play Zed until you hit Ahri. If you do hit +1 Ionia, put the spat on Kaisa and roll very hard at level 7, as you don't spike very hard at level 8, as your level 8 would just be a flex unit then like Senna, Jarvan, or Sion. Yasuo's itemization is pretty flexible, but it's usually a combination of 1 healing item, Bloodthirster or Hodge, 1 defensive item, Edge of Night or Quicksilver, and 1 damage item like IE, Deathblade, or Titans. Kaisa's best items are Static Shiv, Guardbreaker, Deathcap, Gunblade, Archangels, and Hodge. Morello is also a great option unless you already have Sunfire slammed. Make sure to also itemize Shen with tank items, as he is the backbone of your comp, preferably with WoW and Warmogs, but don't be too greedy as any tank items on him will work. When rolling at level 7, you can also try to go for Karma 3-star if you randomly hit a bunch of great items for her, like Deathcap, Blue Buff, Gunblade, or Morello. Next up is 8 Void Kaisa. Tomorrow I'm releasing an in-depth guide on this comp, so I won't touch on it here as this is becoming a very long video. Juggernaut Garen is the next comp. This is a 3-cost reroll comp, meaning you should slow roll at level 7 for Garen 3, Darius 3, and Sona 3, but give up on Sona and Darius if you have to, as they don't matter at all too much. This comp is only playable with Twisted Fate as your legend. This is because Garen only works with his exact best in slot items, which is Rageblade and Bloodthirster, and he needs multiple Zeke's Heralds to increase his initial attack speed. The third item should always be the Radiant item from Demacia, and this comp is all in on 1 unit, so you should take augments that benefit Garen directly. Anything that increases his healing, damage, or survivability is great. The most important thing with this comp is to hit Garen 3, so any augments that help you hit faster, like March of Progress, Think Fast, Army Building, Golden Ticket, Cruel Pact, and Infernal Contact are also amazing. The next comp is Sorcerer Lux. This is another 4-cost carry comp, so you want to roll down at level 7 for this board on stage 4-1 to stabilize. If you have +1 sorcerers, you can drop Shen for Orianna, and then put the spatula on Sona, Shen, or Jarvan, but usually Sona and then play 6 sorcerers at level 7. When you go level 8, you should play any flex unit like Soraka, Ryze, Sion, or a second Jarvan. If you hit Ahri, you can either play 6 Sorc or drop Vel'Koz and move any items he was holding onto her. The best legend for this comp is Veigar, as giving spell crit to sorcerers is amazing. However, just like picking Urf as your legend, this is not a great playstyle currently, since playing this comp every game is not very consistent, so you should just play Poro if you want to default into this line while remaining flexible. Lux's best items are 1 damage item and a healing item or 2 damage items, especially if you have another source of healing. These include Deathcap, Hodge, Giant Slayer, Gunblade, Guardbreaker, and JG. JG is overbuilt and has poor stats compared to the rest because it is generally a weak item, as noted by Meta TFT, since it is only good when you already have a ton of existing AP. It's still a good slam if you are intending to play 6 or 8 sorcerers, but I would try to avoid it if you are in a position to only play 4. Any extra carry items should also go on Vel'Koz until you hit Ahri. You can also itemize Sona if you have a Sorc spat on her. Tank items should go on Swain, and do not itemize Jarvan, as he always steals the Radiant item if both him and Lux have 2 items. Our last comp is Bruiser Reksai. This is another 3-cost reroll comp, meaning you should slow roll at level 7 for Reksai 3-star. This is the standard board, though you should look to drop Lissandra for 6 Bruiser if you hit Bruiser +1. If you manage to reach level 8, play 6 Bruiser if you hit Sion, if not, just play flex units like Ryze or Jarvan. This comp should only be played under very specific conditions though. You need the right opener, which is either an early Reksai or a Void opener, and you also need the right augments, which are ideally Stable Evolution, Bruiser +1, Gargantuan Resolve, Titanic Strength, Unified Resistance, or Martyr. And most importantly of all, you need the right items for Reksai. Reksai's best 3 items are Double Titans and Bloodthirster. Hodge and IE are also decent substitutes, but they are less than ideal. Itemize Sejuani with tank items, and itemize Kaisa as a secondary carry with items like Shiv, Hodge, Gunblade, Deathcap, Archangels, and Guardbreaker. Make sure to build Sunfire or Morello if you have no anti-heal. Like I said earlier, all of these comps are linked in an Imgur album that is available for patrons and YouTube members, and the links to join those is down in the description. So thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video.